Homeless woman asks Melania Trump, "Can you give me $1?" Trump's response will melt your heart. It was a crisp autumn afternoon in New York City, the kind of day where the streets buzzed with life. The sidewalks were filled with people rushing to their destinations, businessmen in tailored suits, tourists snapping photos, and mothers pushing strollers through the crowded avenues. Among them, Melania Trump walked quietly, blending in more than most would expect. Dressed in a simple red dress and white jacket, she moved through the city with a grace that made people take a second glance, though few realized exactly who she was. Today, she was just another face in the crowd, enjoying the anonymity that only a bustling city could provide. As she strolled past the corner of 5th Avenue and 57th Street, a voice stopped her. "Excuse me, miss. Can you spare $1?" Melania paused, turning toward the voice. A woman sat on the sidewalk, bundled in layers of worn clothes. Her face was weathered, her eyes tired but kind. In her hand, she held out a crumpled paper cup, her fingers trembling slightly from the cold. For a brief moment, their eyes met, and Melania felt something stir deep inside her, a mix of empathy and curiosity. The woman smiled faintly, a little embarrassed by the request. "Just $1. That's all I need." Melania reached into her purse, her fingers brushing against the neatly folded bills inside. She could easily have handed the woman $1 and walked away, just like so many others had done before her. But something made her stop. "Why $1?" Melania asked gently, her accent soft but unmistakable. The woman chuckled, a dry laugh that carried a hint of sadness. "Sometimes $1's all it takes. Enough for a cup of coffee, or to remind me the world hasn't forgotten me." Melania's heart tightened at the words. She knelt down, bringing herself to the woman's level. "What's your name?" "Linda," the woman said, surprised that Melania was even asking. "Linda Marcus?" "Linda," Melania repeated, offering a warm smile. "Tell me your story." Linda hesitated at first, unused to such kindness from a stranger. But something about Melania's presence felt safe, inviting. She took a deep breath and began to speak. "I wasn't always on the streets," Linda said, her voice steady but tinged with pain. "I used to have a job, a family, a little apartment in Queens. Things were good until they weren't." She paused, her eyes drifting to the passing crowd. "It started when I lost my job. Cutbacks, they said. I tried to find something else, but nothing worked out. My savings ran dry, and one thing led to another. Before I knew it, I was evicted. My daughter, she had to go live with her father. And me? I ended up here." Melania listened intently, her eyes never leaving Linda's. Each word struck a chord, painting a picture of how easily life could unravel. "People walk by every day," Linda continued, "like I'm invisible. Like I don't matter anymore." She sighed, her shoulders slumping. "I just want to get back on my feet. I just need a chance." Melania felt a lump rise in her throat. She had met many people in her life, but few had spoken with the raw honesty Linda had just shared. She reached into her purse again, pulling out more than just a single $1. "Linda," she said softly, "this isn't just about money. You need more than that." Linda looked at the bills in Melania's hand, her eyes widening in disbelief. "But I can't take that. It's too much." "You can," Melania insisted, placing the money into Linda's trembling hands. "And you will. But I'm not just going to leave it at that." She pulled out her phone and made a quick call, her tone calm but authoritative. "Yes, it's me. I'm at the corner of 5th and 57th. I need someone from the shelter outreach program here right away. We have someone who needs help." Linda blinked, struggling to process what was happening. You're calling someone for me?" Melania nodded. "You said you need a chance. Let's make that happen." Minutes later, a woman from a local outreach program arrived, carrying a clipboard and a warm smile. She knelt beside Linda, speaking to her gently and asking a few questions about her situation. Linda looked back at Melania, her eyes brimming with tears. Why are you doing this?" Melania placed a hand on Linda's shoulder. "Because no one should feel invisible. We all fall. What matters is that we help each other get back up." Tears rolled down Linda's cheeks as she nodded, her voice trembling. "Thank you. I don't know how to repay you, You don't need to repay me, Melania said. Just promise me one thing. When you're back on your feet, help someone else who needs it. I will, Linda whispered. I promise. As Linda was helped into a waiting van that would take her to the shelter, Melania stood quietly, watching her go. The city swirled around her again, bustling and busy, but in that moment, it felt like time had paused. A man passing by stopped and turned to Melania. That was a beautiful thing you did, he said. Not many people would take the time. Melania smiled softly. Sometimes all it takes is a moment to change someone's life. Later that night, as Melania sat by her window, watching the city lights twinkle below, she couldn't stop thinking about Linda. Her story was a reminder that life could change in an instant, for better or worse. She made a mental note to follow up with the shelter, to make sure Linda was getting the help she needed. But deep down, she knew that this was just the beginning of Linda's journey. And in her heart, Melania hoped it would lead to something beautiful. A few days later, Melania sat in her office, quietly reflecting on her encounter with Linda. Something about the woman's story had stayed with her, a sense of resilience and quiet strength that refused to be broken despite everything life had thrown at her. Melania had seen hardship in her life, but Linda's experience was a raw reminder of how easily someone could fall through the cracks. Determined to do more, Melania picked up her phone and called St. Anne's Shelter, the organization that had taken Linda in. Hi, this is Melania Trump. I wanted to check on Linda Marquez. How's she doing? She asked, her voice steady but warm. The shelter coordinator, Susan, recognized the name immediately. Ah yes, Linda, she's doing well. It's only been a few days, but she's adjusting. She's grateful for the chance to get back on her feet. I'll let her know you called. Please do, Melania said. And if she needs anything, clothes, food, a job referral, just let me know. Susan smiled on the other end of the line. That's very generous of you. We'll keep you updated. Meanwhile, at St. Anne's, Linda was settling into a small but clean room, the first place she could call home in a long time. For the first time in years, she had a real bed with fresh sheets, a warm meal waiting for her downstairs, and people who genuinely cared about her well-being. It was overwhelming at first. She had grown used to being invisible, ignored by society, and suddenly, people were listening, helping, and treating her with kindness. Linda stared at herself in the small mirror above the sink, brushing her fingers through her hair. She barely recognized the woman staring back at her. Her face was tired, lined with years of hardship, but for the first time in a long time, there was a flicker of hope in her eyes. 2 weeks later, Melania decided to visit St. Anne's Shelter in person. She arrived quietly, without the usual media entourage, wanting to keep the visit private and personal. Susan greeted her at the door, her eyes lighting up with recognition. Thank you for coming, she said. Linda's doing much better than when she arrived. I'll take you to her. As they walked down the hallway, Susan shared more about Linda's progress. She's been attending job training sessions, and she's even been helping out in the kitchen. She said it makes her feel useful again. Melania nodded, a warm smile spreading across her face. That's wonderful to hear. In the common room, Linda was setting out plates for the evening meal when she saw Melania walk in. For a moment, she froze, unsure if her eyes were playing tricks on her. Melania? Linda said, her voice barely a whisper. What are you doing here? Melania walked over, her heels clicking softly against the floor. I came to see you. I wanted to check on you and see how you're doing. Linda's eyes filled with tears. But I don't know what to say. You've done so much for me already. Melania placed a hand on her shoulder. You've done the hard part, Linda. You've chosen to start over. That takes more courage than anything I've done. They sat down at a nearby table, the warm smell of freshly baked bread filling the room. Linda spoke about her new life at the shelter, how she was learning new skills, reconnecting with her daughter, and even thinking about applying for a job at a local grocery store. It's not much, but it's a start, Linda said, her eyes shining with determination. Every great journey starts with a single step, Melania said. And I believe this is just the beginning for you. The weeks turned into months, and Linda continued to rebuild her life. Melania kept in touch, checking in regularly and offering support whenever she could. One day, she received an exciting phone call from Susan. "You'll never believe this," Susan said. "Linda just got a job at a local bakery. She's been baking in our kitchen for weeks, and the owner of the bakery offered her a full-time position." Melania smiled, pride swelling in her chest. "That's incredible. Please give her my congratulations." A few weeks later, Melania decided to surprise Linda at the bakery. The shop was small and charming, filled with the scent of fresh pastries and warm coffee. Behind the counter, Linda stood in a white apron, carefully arranging a tray of croissants. When she looked up and saw Melania, her face lit up. "Melania," she said, rushing out from behind the counter. "You're a hard woman to track down," Melania teased. "I heard you've been making quite the impression here." Linda laughed, wiping her hands on her apron. "It's been amazing. I never thought I'd be here, not after everything that happened." "You've worked hard for this," Melania said. "And I'm so proud of you." Linda's eyes filled with tears. "I couldn't have done it without you. You gave me a chance when no one else would." "You did it all yourself," Melania insisted. "I just helped you take the first step." The bakery became a new beginning for Linda, a place where she found purpose and community. Regular customers came to know her by name, and her pastries became local favorites. Slowly but surely, she rebuilt her life piece by piece. One morning, as she sipped her coffee before her shift, Linda pulled out a small notebook and began writing a list of goals. Find a new apartment, reconnect fully with her daughter, and someday help other women the way Melania had helped her. Months later, at a charity gala organized by Street Ends, Melania stood at the podium, addressing a room full of supporters. She spoke about the power of compassion, the importance of seeing the humanity in every person, and how small acts of kindness could create ripples far beyond what anyone imagined. "Sometimes all it takes is $1, she said, her voice strong and steady. "But sometimes what people really need is a chance to be seen, to be heard, and to be given a fresh start." As the audience applauded, Melania glanced toward the back of the room, where Linda stood with her daughter, smiling proudly. The journey wasn't easy, but it had been worth it. For both Melania and Linda, the encounter on that busy street had changed their lives in ways they never expected. And it all started with a simple question: "Can you give me $1? Because sometimes $1 is just $1. But sometimes it's the beginning of a new chapter." Months later, the early morning sun cast a warm glow over the bustling city streets. Life had found its rhythm again for Linda, but it was a different life now, one filled with hope and purpose rather than survival. She had grown into her new role at the bakery, becoming not just an employee but a key part of the community. Every morning, customers eagerly lined up for her pastries. Her soft, buttery croissants had become the stuff of neighborhood legend. Linda had found her passion in baking, and with every loaf of bread, every tray of cookies, she felt herself piecing her life back together. Her biggest joy, however, came from her daughter, Mia. The relationship they had once lost was now healing, slowly but surely. Mia would visit the bakery on weekends, helping her mother in the kitchen, flour dusting her hair as they laughed and worked side by side. For the first time in years, Linda felt whole again. One afternoon, Linda received a letter from the shelter. It was an invitation to a fundraising event celebrating success stories, people who had turned their lives around with the shelter's help. Linda had always been modest about her journey, but something about the invitation made her pause. She called Melania. "Melania," Linda began hesitantly, "I got this invitation from Saintons. They want me to speak at their event." "That's wonderful," Melania said warmly. "You have an incredible story, Linda. You should share it." "I don't know," Linda said, her voice uncertain. "I'm not used to being in the spotlight." "You don't have to be perfect," Melania said. "Just speak from the heart. Your story will inspire others." Linda smiled. "But I'll do it." On the evening of the event, the ballroom at the St. Anne's fundraiser was filled with supporters, volunteers, and former residents of the shelter. Soft music played in the background as guests mingled and shared stories. Linda stood at the edge of the room, nervously adjusting her dress. Melania arrived shortly after, greeting Linda with a warm hug. "You look beautiful," she said. "Are you ready?" "As ready as I'll ever be," Linda replied with a nervous chuckle. A few moments later, The event coordinator tapped the microphone, signaling the beginning of the speeches. After a brief introduction, Linda was called to the stage. Linda stepped up to the podium, the bright lights making it hard to see the crowd. Her hands trembled slightly as she gripped the edges of the lectern. She glanced at Melania, who gave her an encouraging nod from the front row. "Good evening," Linda began, her voice steady despite the butterflies in her stomach. "My name is Linda Marquez, and just a few months ago, I never imagined I'd be standing here." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "Life has a way of surprising us," she continued. "One day, you think you have it all figured out, and the next, everything changes. For me, that change came when I lost my job, my home, and, for a while, my sense of hope." The room grew quiet, every eye fixed on her. "I thought no one saw me anymore," Linda said. "I thought I was invisible, just another face in the crowd. But then, something incredible happened. Someone stopped. Someone cared. That someone was Melania Trump." Linda turned toward Melania, her eyes shining with gratitude. "She didn't just give me money. She gave me something far more valuable, a second chance. She believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself." Linda's voice grew stronger as she spoke about the bakery, her daughter, and how her life had taken a new direction. By the time she finished, the room was on its feet, the applause thunderous and heartfelt. Melania stood, clapping with the rest of the audience. She could see how much Linda had grown, not just in confidence but in strength and self-worth. It was a transformation that spoke to the power of compassion and resilience. As Linda left the stage, Melania met her with open arms. "You were amazing," Melania said. "I'm so proud of you." "Thank you," Linda said, wiping a tear from her cheek. "I never thought I'd get here. But I'm glad I did." The days that followed were filled with new opportunities for Linda. The bakery's owner offered her a partnership, recognizing her dedication and talent. Together, they expanded the business, opening a second location in a nearby neighborhood. Linda became a mentor at St. Anne's, sharing her story with other women who were just starting their journeys back to stability. She volunteered her time, helping them learn skills, write resumes, and find jobs. Her relationship with Mia blossomed, stronger than ever. They moved into a small but cozy apartment near the bakery, where they decorated the walls with family photos and homemade art. One morning, Linda sat at a small cafe table outside the bakery, sipping her coffee as the sun warmed her face. She watched the world go by, children laughing on their way to school, neighbors greeting each other, the hum of life moving forward. A familiar figure walked up the street, her elegant stride unmistakable. Melania smiled as she approached, holding a bouquet of fresh flowers. "I thought I'd stop by and see how you're doing," Melania said, handing Linda the bouquet. "Perfect timing," Linda said, gesturing to the empty chair across from her. "Join me?" Melania sat down, her eyes twinkling with warmth. "You've come a long way." Linda nodded, a contented smile on her face. "And I'll never forget how it all started, with $1 and a little kindness." Melania's smile deepened. "It was always in you, Linda. You just needed a little reminder." They sat together, sharing stories and laughter as the world moved around them, two women bound by an unexpected connection that had changed both of their lives forever. Because sometimes, a single act of kindness can spark a new beginning. And sometimes, the smallest gesture, a simple question, $1 held out on a street corner, can lead to a life transformed. As the sun set over the city, Linda stood at the window of her cozy apartment, watching the warm light bathe the skyline. The day had been long but fulfilling, a steady stream of customers at the bakery, meetings with her new business partner, and a call from Mia's teacher with glowing feedback about her daughter's progress in school. Life had become something she never thought possible, stable, joyful, and filled with purpose. Her phone buzzed on the counter. It was a message from Melania. "Thinking of you today. Hope everything is going well at the bakery. Let me know when you're free to catch up." Linda smiled as she typed a quick response. "Hi, Melania. I'm free this weekend. Would love to see you." That Saturday, they met at a quiet cafe in the heart of the city. The place was warm and inviting, the smell of fresh bread and brewed coffee filling the air. Linda arrived early, feeling a mix of excitement and gratitude. It wasn't just a chance to catch up, it was an opportunity to thank Melania once again for everything she had done. Melania walked in a few minutes later, her usual grace and calm presence turning heads as she entered. She spotted Linda and smiled, making her way to the table. "It's good to see you," Melania said, giving Linda a warm hug. "You too," Linda replied, motioning for her to sit. "I've been looking forward to this." They spent the next hour talking like old friends. Linda shared updates about the bakery's success and how the new location was already becoming a neighborhood favorite. She spoke about Mia's growing confidence and how their relationship had blossomed. "It's hard to believe how far we've come," Linda said, shaking her head in disbelief. "Some days, I wake up and wonder if it's all a dream." "It's no dream," Melania said, her eyes twinkling. "It's a testament to your strength and determination. You built this life with your own hands." Linda's smile faded slightly as she leaned forward. "But I couldn't have done it without you. You were the first person to see me, to really see me, when I felt invisible. That changed everything." Melania reached across the table, placing a hand on Linda's. "Sometimes, all someone needs is a little light to find their way again. You found yours, and now you're shining it on others." Their conversation was interrupted by a soft voice. "Excuse me, are you Linda Marquez?" Linda turned to see a woman standing nearby, holding the hand of a little boy. The woman's eyes were filled with nervous excitement. "I'm sorry to bother you," the woman said, "but I recognize you from the St. Anne's fundraiser. Your story really touched me. I've been struggling for a while, and hearing what you went through gave me hope." Linda felt her heart swell. "Thank you. That means so much to me. What's your name?" "Maria," the woman said, her grip tightening on her son's hand. "This is my little boy, Lucas." Melania smiled at them warmly. "It's a pleasure to meet you both." Maria hesitated, then added, "I've been thinking about reaching out to St. Anne's, but it's hard to ask for help." Linda stood, her eyes full of understanding. "It's not easy, but it's the best thing you can do for yourself and for Lucas. The people there changed my life. They'll do the same for you." Maria nodded, tears brimming in her eyes. "Thank you. I'll go tomorrow." Linda placed a gentle hand on Maria's shoulder. "I'll be there with you if you want." "Really?" "Really," Linda said with a reassuring smile. "You're not alone." After Maria and Lucas left, Melania sat back, her expression thoughtful. "You've become a guide for others, Linda. It's beautiful to see." Linda laughed softly. "It feels strange sometimes. Just a few months ago, I was the one needing a guide." "That's what makes you the perfect person for it," Melania said. "You know exactly what it feels like to be in their shoes." In the weeks that followed, Linda continued to mentor Maria, helping her navigate the challenges of rebuilding her life. She brought her to job interviews, introduced her to the shelter's counselors, and even invited her to help out at the bakery on weekends. Maria's confidence grew, and little by little, she began to see a future filled with possibilities. One afternoon, as they were cleaning up after a busy day at the bakery, Maria turned to Linda with tears in her eyes. "You've given me so much," she said. "I don't know how I'll ever repay you." "You don't have to repay me," Linda said, smiling. "Just promise me that when you're back on your feet, you'll help someone else." Maria nodded, her voice steady. "I will. I promise." The bakery became more than just a business. It became a hub for the community. Linda hosted free baking classes for women from the shelter, teaching them practical skills while building their confidence. The classes became so popular that the local news picked up the story, calling it a bakery of second chances. The publicity brought even more customers, and soon Linda found herself needing to hire more staff. Naturally, she turned to St. Anne's, giving jobs to women who had been through similar struggles. The bakery became a symbol of hope, a place where people found not just employment but a second chance at life. One evening, Melania returned to the bakery for a quiet visit. The place was warm and bustling, filled with the scent of fresh bread and the sound of laughter. Linda greeted her at the door, her apron dusted with flour. "Welcome back," Linda said, hugging her. "I wasn't sure if you'd make it tonight." "I wouldn't miss it," Melania replied. "I heard you've been busy." Linda laughed. Busy is an understatement. But I wouldn't have it any other way. As they sat at a small table near the counter, sipping tea, Melania looked around, taking it all in. You've created something truly special here, she said. This isn't just a bakery. It's a place where people come to heal, to find hope. Linda nodded, her eyes misty. It's funny, it all started with a simple question, can you give me $1? And look where that question led you, Melania said. They clinked their teacups together, smiling. Here's to second chances, Melania said. And to passing them on, Linda added. As the evening wind whispered through the streets outside, the lights inside the bakery glowed softly, a beacon of warmth and possibility. For everyone who passed through its doors, it was a reminder that no matter how dark life might get, there was always a chance for a fresh start. And sometimes, it all began with a single act of kindness.